All right, questions?
How do you feel about how the rest of this practice went?
I felt real good about it. I think you need to have some practices where there's some mistakes that happen so you can coach them up. I mean, it's a coach's dream, that type of practice, because you got a lot of things to go back to. I call them like anchor points. Like you have these plays that we're a little bit off, whether it's execution or adjustment or the correct response in the moment. And you have these anchor points you can go back to and say, hey, remember that practice in August, in the last preseason week, we had this similar play. Let's remember we like this on that. Or, hey, maybe Brees is saying, hey, I'm going to get, if I get this again, remember that play we had, I'm going to break out or instead of breaking in or something like that. So I think, it's really good to have those type of practices. We have some coachable moments. I think we did some nice things, and then we had some, every play there was like one person kind of off. Might have been me, might have been a lineman, might have been a receiver, but good teachable moments.
What can you learn from a practice like that?
I just said, those are anchor point moments. Those are anchor points to go back to, and some of them are stuff that I feel like we should know. There's plenty of excuses we could give about 4:00 bedtime Monday morning or Sunday morning, and all this and that, and pads and all these different things. But at the end of the day, we're getting stressed this camp in a way that, us old guys, we haven't been stressed in a while, and I think it's good for us. So we need to see how we're going to respond in a unscripted periods where the entire playbook is up. Good chance to see, like, who can handle what, how much can we give certain guys, and then what the emphasis needs to be moving forward. So I think those are the most valuable practices for us. Obviously, we're going against a great defense, and we've got after them a number of practices this camp. So that was a really important practice for us, I think.
What do you think of Malik Taylor? I know you go back with him going on IR.
That's news to me. I didn't know that. But I know he's been battling his injury. Malik had a really nice spring, a nice start to camp. It's too bad because he knows the system, and I feel like when he's gotten opportunities the last couple of years, he's made a lot of plays. But the most important ability is availability, like I know full well last year. So hopefully that means he has a chance to come back at some point. I'm not sure if that's the case. I just heard about this just now.
Aaron, how do you look at tomorrow for yourself and the starting offense, and how do you handle that, mentally going into that practice against the Giants?
Yeah, it's like our preseason game. Whether or not we play Saturday, who knows? If Saleh wants us to, then we will. I don't know what he told you guys, but we haven't been told anything yet. Yeah, okay. So we're on the same page. We're good. Yeah. But it'll be good. Most of these practices have been pretty one-heavy. We took a ton of the reps against Washington and then against Carolina. So I would assume it's going to be a lot of reps, probably situational stuff. There'll probably be a third down period. It'll probably be some sort of red zone period, some sort of 2-minute period. So those are good opportunities. A different defense than we saw last year in our brief 2 series. Wink told us pregame he's going to play a bunch of cover 3 and then went 0 on half the snaps, including the first play. There's more of a familiarity with their coordinator and Todd Downing and I think Keith being on the staff together. So maybe we won't get that tomorrow, but they got 2 great premier pass rushers. They got really good interior guys. They're young in some spots, but it'll be fun. I'm excited to see Malik. See what he's all about. Be a good opportunity for him going against some, our premier corners. And anytime you get teams together, it's always interesting. You see how it shakes out as far as personalities and pushing and shoving. And there's the fear of somebody throwing a punch and having to play in the game. So hopefully it's a clean practice, but you never know.
So I know you said your preseason football is not real football, but what is your preference about playing on Saturday?
I don't really have a preference. I feel good about where I'm at with my body and what I've kind of put together. I feel like I've done different things throughout camp as far as rollouts and roll out and pulling up, getting out of the pocket, making plays, throwing back across my body, pump faking, and actually extending plays and getting some yards. So I feel like I've done a lot. Haven't taken a hit. That's kind of the main thing. Thankfully, I respect and appreciate my defense for that. Every now and then, there's a bunch of, some crazy guys you might worry about, accidentally drilling you from time to time. We'll see if we can get through tomorrow without getting drilled. But no, I stand by what I said. Even these joint practices, there's a fear among all the staffs on, like, how much can we show? What should we hold back? What are we actually going to run for this session? It's a who do you know coaching business. So everybody talks to each other, and if somebody doesn't like somebody, somebody has a friend on the Niners staff, maybe they're going to tell them something about something that we run. I think that's the fear, and probably on their side too. I just know with Carolina, it wasn't like they did a whole lot. So how much work did we actually get out of that? I think it's good for going against somebody else, but is it actually, making you better than practicing against your own team? I think it's debatable.
How impressed have you been with the offensive line, especially Olu, with his performance against Carolina?
Well, I got to admit, when I'm watching the film, I'm aware of what he's doing, but I'm really watching Andrew and Adrian. If he doesn't stand out, that usually is a good thing for an offensive lineman. I think he's been, very steady. There's, not a lot of plays where he seems out of position or lunging. I know he had a holding call. Being biased as I am, I always feel like when they showed up on the Jumbotron, most of them are kind of questionable. Every now and then there's a real blatant one, but I felt like the hold on him was very questionable. But I think overall he's done a nice job. He's shown now he can play the left side and the right side, which I think is very good. It's setting himself up to be a swing tackle for us. But he's real steady. He's real quiet, but he seems real steady.
You talked about being tested more than you had in a while. I was just curious, are you talking about, like, compared to last year's training camp? Because Robert had also mentioned that he switched up reps, the way he's dividing reps a lot. So I was wondering if it's different from your standpoint, but just some more clarification on that.
I would say the camp is much harder this year, and maybe the hardest in the last 7 or 8 of my career. I knew that. I had a little insight coming into camp that that's what Robert wanted to do. So I think it's been good for us. There's a lot of different schools of thought, and there's always, people you can scapegoat as far as injuries and different things. But I think some of the older guys enjoy the, to steal a coaching word, the callous part of training camp where you're kind of grinding. And some people believe that although it puts more, strain on you in training camp, that actually gets you more ready to play when the season starts. And then some people believe the opposite. And you know how it goes. Whatever teams are having success, people kind of look at their schedule and go, let's do that. But I give Robert a lot of credit because he, from the start of the offseason, said this is going to be a tough training camp. And I think it's been a lot of reps for the ones. He told me the other day we were somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 more reps, I think, at this point in camp than last year. And it feels like it, but it's good. I think it's going to allow us to maybe be a little more ready. And we've been fortunate with injuries. We haven't had a ton of injuries so far. So I like it. It's been great. You talk to the older guys, not a lot of complaints from any of those guys. The young guys don't know any better, so it's been good.
Aaron, you mentioned you haven't taken a hit, and earlier in camp you talked about certain things that, like the mental part of the game as far as the comeback. Is taking a hit in a game like one of those last hurdles for you mentally that, okay, it's all good?
It's a hurdle every year. I think anytime, and I used to play in the preseason, limited and then ramp it up in the second and the third. And then, I remember playing against Tennessee back in, 10 or 11, I think. And it was like one possession you're going to play. And I remember we had a play where it's like a, like double go or something. And it was like can to a run or check to a run versus 2, and it came out Tampa 2, and I'm like, I'm just going to throw a pick here, a touchdown, and I kind of fit a whole shot into Greg for a touchdown. The reason I say this is it doesn't matter if you've played in the preseason or you've in your 10th year, 20th year, it always helps once you kind of get that first shot out of the way. It doesn't have to be in the preseason. Last year I kind of got knocked down, I think, on one of them, and then Jihad hit, kind of pushed me after a play. But, it's going to be first time you get kind of rocked, and then it feels like, okay, I'm good. You're not really going to get rocked in the preseason because even if we play a series or two, it's not like there's going to be plays where I'm holding on to the football for a long time or anything. So, there's probably more risk of getting rocked in a practice.
Aaron, given your connection with Allen back in Green Bay, how difficult was it to see the season he had last year just from a mental standpoint? Have there been points this summer where you kind of noticed he's closer to that 2022 form?
Yeah, I love Allen, and Allen and I are close friends. I think it was a tough year for a lot of us last year. I give him a lot of credit for the attitude he's kind of brought back. G's obviously our number one. Then we signed Mike Williams to come in and obviously take reps away from Allen. But with Mike not being able to practice just yet, I just liked Allen's approach, and I feel like he's kind of doing some of the grimy things that he did that made him really successful in Green Bay, and that's blocking and running the short routes over the middle. And then you've seen he's made a number of plays down the field. He's caught the ball real well. I like him in the slot. We had a nice adjustment yesterday. He was in the slot against Sauce. He's just such a big body, and he's just versatile. He can play inside. He can play outside of Z. He can play outside of X. And with our desire to move Garrett as much as possible, it gives us a couple big guys on the outside if we want. And in G, being able to move in the slot, and Gibson and Conk inside. So, I think he's had a really nice camp. I'm really proud of him. I think his leadership, as much as anything, has been great. I think he's conducted himself with a lot of humility, which is always some of the pie that you eat after a season you'd like to have gone differently. But I'm really proud of the way he's responded, and he's had a fantastic camp, I think.
Having watched Garrett,
Last one?
having watched Garrett last year, but being unable to throw to him, are you really looking forward to that step on the field for week one and throwing as many passes as you can to him?
Well, I like to throw to the open guy.
Yeah.
But like it was in Green Bay at times with various guys, sometimes that number one guy is open more than others, so they get the lion's share of the targets from time to time. Garrett, I just want to see his leadership role continue to expand, and his route tree to expand, and his his instincts to continue to further. But I'm really proud of him. I think he's something happened kind of mid-camp, and I think there was one play in general. We had a rough practice day before. Defense kind of got after us in pads, and not many people really responded. And I went to a couple guys in the tight end group, because they're always kind of the most steady, and I said, we got to set the tone today. And then I just mentioned something to Brees about how Ryan Grant used to finish runs all the time. And Brees took the first one and went about 80, He might have got tackled, but he finished to the end zone. And since that rep, that has been the standard. And when he does it, everybody else does it, including Garrett. And when Garrett does it, he does it. That means that Gibson's going to do it, and Brownlee's going to do it, and all those young guys are going to do it. So I give those guys a lot of credit, because the most important leadership at times is just leading by example. So I'm really proud of Garrett in that respect.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.